Welcome to the Observeday podcast, the show where we celebrate the days that matter. From holidays to meaningful observances, we bring you inspiring conversations, stories, and ideas to make each day count. Whether it's raising awareness, learning something new, or simply sparking joy, this is your space to explore the calendar in a whole new way. I'm your host, Wisdom Okonkwo, and I'm excited to share today's observance with you. Let's dive in. Podcaster, coach, and lifelong animal advocate, Julie's journey into storytelling was shaped in part by a golden retriever named Goldie, whose presence left a lasting mark on her life. Now, Golden Retriever Day offers a perfect moment to explore how dogs shape who we are, how they inspire advocacy, and why their stories matter. Through our podcast, The Story of My Pet, Julie has helped elevate pet stories into moments of connection, healing, and awareness around rescue and adoption. This conversation is about love, memory, and what animals quietly teach us about being human. Welcome to the podcast, Julie.
Thank you so much for having me.
When National Golden Retriever Day comes around, or when you hear the word, what memories of Goldie rise to the surface?
So many. She was just such a great dog. I still have photos of her in my office. Hard to see, but this is Goldie with my puppy Champ. And, we got her when I was around, I want to say around 6. And my dad actually, a friend told him he saw a golden retriever at the shelter. Now, back then, the shelters were not overcrowded and all of that like they are now. But she came in as a stray and whoever maybe her owners had been never found her, and so we adopted her, and he surprised my sister and I with her, and they think she was around 2 years old, so she was full grown, and she was just the best dog. I mean, gold we all know we m anybody who's ever met a golden retriever knows they're I've never met a bad one, but she was so sweet, and she just loved us. She just loved being with us, being around us. She loved when we had people over to the house. She was always kind of the center of whatever was happening, but she was also really sweet with me as a young kid. Like, I have photos where she's laying down and I have a blanket on her and she has a pillow under her head. So obviously she let me do things to her and she just wanted to be a part of whatever we were doing. So, I mean, I just have a flood of memories whenever I think about her.
Well, was there a specific moment when you realized, growing up, how deeply pets can shape our stories and identities?
Absolutely, especially now looking back on it, but, I we always had a dog. When I was born, my parents had a poodle, and then we got Goldie, and then when I was in junior high, we got, Champ as a puppy, and it's just they're that ever-present person that doesn't talk back or expect things of you. They're just there to give you love, and one of the things she always gave us was a big tail wag. She didn't realize how strong her tail was, and if we were, like, in the living room and she wasn't there, we could hear her coming because we would hear the tail knocking things off of the
Yeah.
she just kinda, like, exude happiness and love, and she had the, most beautiful soft fur, and she would jump in the pool and go swimming with us in the summer when it was hot. Sometimes we'd come home actually from school on a hot day, and we'd look out there and we're like, "You're already wet." So she would go in without us too.
Wow. I'm curious, how did your relationship with Goldie influence the way you see animals in general today?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot on my pet podcast that I realized because I always had animals and we had, these 3 dogs at different points that were so much a part of our lives that, I relied on them for just like when I wasn't feeling good, I would pet them. Goldie and Champ, they would both come and lay by my bed if they knew I wasn't feeling well or if I was sad. And so I just realized as I got older how in tune we are with animals and how they respond to how we're feeling without us even being able to to explain it to them. And so for me, those are the things I love to think about, but also why, I'm so passionate about having animals and helping them because we're their whole life, right? We're their whole world when we have a pet. And we may go off to school or work or whatever, but their whole life surrounds us and what we do and our schedules. And so, that's a really important connection. Golden retrievers are amazing. They're just such great dogs and they can do so many things. A lot of golden retrievers become therapy dogs. They become guide dogs for the blind. I had an account I followed for a long time where it was a little girl who was diabetic, and she had a golden retriever that could sense when she was having an episode and needed insulin. I mean, dogs are just amazing in what they can do for us.
Wow. How do your own pets continue to shape your daily life? Do you even have pets currently? And what role do they play in your daily life and emotional world now?
Yes, I do have many pets. I
How many?
in my entire life, I only went, like, 1 year. The first year I lived out on my own in my own apartment without a pet. So, the rest of my life, I've always had my husband and I currently have 3 cats inside. We also care for 2 outside cats that live in our yard. We also have 2 tortoises. They're currently in hibernation.
Before we dive deeper, I'd love to invite you to join the Observeday newsletter. Every week, I send you highlights of upcoming observances, creative ways to celebrate, and behind the scenes extras from the shows. It's the perfect way to stay inspired and never miss a meaningful moment. Sign up today at observeday.com/join. That is observeday.com/join. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
And my husband likes a lot of other type of animals. He has tarantulas and a scorpion and things like that.
Oh,
I stick to the more furry friends.
yeah. Wow. Wow.
And someday we'll have a dog again. Someday.
Oh,
When it's
that's
right.
strange. What happened? Why no dog?
I think because the first pet I got as an adult on my own, I was living in an apartment, so I adopted a kitten, and then I fell in love with cats. I never had them growing up. My mom was allergic. So then I kind of went all in, and so, the last 15 years we've had a variety of different cats, and I still love dogs, and I actually did a lot of dog sitting during the pandemic when people needed people to help take care of their animals. So I did a lot of dog sitting. I got my dog fixed that way. And I also worked at our local shelter for a while, helping with the dog adoption events. So I'm still very connected to dogs, but our oldest cat, Charlie, is 16 and a half, and he has arthritis, so he doesn't get around very easily. And we've just decided we don't want to bring a dog into his world when he just needs to enjoy his golden years and be able to, have a nice quiet home. And so someday we'll bring a dog back into the family, but I have lots of friends who have dogs and I get to be auntie to their dogs.
Mhm. I'm curious. How did pet storytelling become a form of advocacy for you? What was the tipping
Yeah.
point?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When I started the story of my pet, I kind of started it to see what is podcasting? Do I like it? Do I want to do it? And as I started doing it and people started reaching out and saying, "I'd love to come on," what I started realizing in every interview I did, somehow the importance of rescue and fostering and adoption, all these different elements that are important to animal rescue came up. And then I realized as someone who I thought I was an advocate, didn't even know the reality of what's
Yeah.
happening and what's needed. So I would say probably the first year that kind of kept kind of coming out. And then I realized that's what I wanna focus on. So I actually ask every guest, no matter what topic we're talking about related to animals, I ask them to bring the name and information of a local rescue or shelter in their area that they can share, so that I'm doing my part in growing the visibility of the different organizations. So I would
Yeah.
definitely say that first year I started to realize, "Oh, there's a lot of other people out here like me who love animals and just wanna help, but we don't always know all the right information."
Yeah. Oh, and since you begin doing this, what role has stories play in changing how people think about rescue, fostering, adoption, etc., etc.? The list goes on and on and on.
Right, I think that by hearing people's stories of what they've seen happen that isn't good, what have experienced with people who have purchased or know breeders or have seen animals being harmed in some way, I think the storytelling, the impact of the feeling and the emotion of it all, but also just hearing the joy and the love that adopting and fostering can bring into your life, that I think a lot of people have just realized, "Oh, it's not that scary, it's not that hard, but I could make a difference." And so that's where I've really seen the storytelling part really make an impact with people.
Can you give me an example of such stories?
Oh gosh. I think one of the ones I get a lot is with fostering. A lot of people say, "I couldn't foster. If I brought an animal into my home, I'd fall in love and I'd never be able to give them up," right? Well,
Yeah.
first of all, That's okay, because sometimes all fostering is you doing a temporary see if this pet is right for you and you are right for them, right? And so I'm a prime example. I fostered a litter of 6 kittens that were brought to a local shelter at 2 weeks old. No mom cat, so they couldn't survive on their own. I brought them home and fostered them, which was like a full-time job with bottle babies, and,
Yeah.
they all grew up big and strong, and I took them back to the shelter, and one of them I had fallen in love with, and we adopted her, and she is now our baby, Pumpkin, and so I often remind myself that the 3 years we've had of joy and love with her, I mean, she just is endless entertainment. She's a calico, that, like, if I hadn't said yes to fostering that litter, that she would have
Yeah.
never been with us. But then I also think I wish I knew the families that adopted the others, because I'm sure they have stories that if I hadn't said yes, what would have happened to those kittens? Because kittens that
Yeah.
young can't be in a shelter. And so unfortunately, sometimes they get euthanized and it's just heartbreaking. But I know for me, it was something I was able to do at that moment. And so I tell people it doesn't mean you have to do it over and over again. Maybe you can only do it certain times of year, certain times when you have time off, whatever it is, but to try it and to see if it works for you. And fostering can just make such a big difference. And so I think those are ways I've seen really people try it and realize, oh, this is amazing. I get to help in a different way.
Yeah. How can sharing pet stories create community in ways people might not expect?
One of the things I think I didn't expect either, especially once I decided to focus on, talking about rescue and how people can help, is I didn't expect so many of the stories I've talked to people about is to have an underlying relation to mental health. I've spoken to people who talk about how important their pets are to their own mental health and dealing with things like depression and anxiety. And I actually interviewed one man who wrote a book about his life. And there was one chapter about his pets, because in the book he talks about how if he hadn't had those cats, he contemplated suicide. And he knows he's still here because he could never let himself leave them. He knew they relied on him. And so for me, I never expected that level of, depth of emotion, but pets are a big role for me too of my mental health, and they bring us joy and they comfort us when we're sad. And so I think that level of the storytelling in my podcast I was not expecting, but I've had some really, really beautiful conversations with people about it.
What does your work reveal about the bond between humans and animals across the different stages of life?
Yeah, that's so true because, if you think about your pets at different stages of your life, they gave us different things, right? Because where
Yeah.
we were, what age we were. And, Goldie and Champ were really important to me as a little girl. I was sick for a long period of time and couldn't go to school. So they were my best friends when I couldn't go see my friends. Now as an adult who works from home, I get the joy of seeing my cats do crazy things around me. Like sometimes they'll come in their hunter voice, and they've got their fake mouth in their fake mouse in their mouth, and they're bringing it to show me. It's just so many little things. And I always tell people that when we grieve a pet, it's so deep because our pets are a part of our everyday lives, our schedules. They're just there always for us. So that's really that bond that we don't always think about. Sometimes it's more obvious when we lose them. But definitely I think with myself with an older pet now who has health issues, I think about every day how grateful I am to still have that day with him. And so I think that's a part of that bond that I know he won't be here forever, but I'm gonna cherish every day that we have had with him and we continue to have with him, and he continues to show the vet that age is not a number, and he continues to do well despite all of his issues, so
Yeah. Well, why does National Golden Retriever Day still matter? I mean, beyond the social media posts and all the photos.
right. I think it's just a moment for us to celebrate a pet, and you can actually if you're watching the video, you can see this little image I have of a golden retriever right up here with a heart above it. I think it's
Yeah.
just gives us that moment to celebrate, to remember, to love the pets we have, to celebrate those we have, and, I love having a photo of Goldie in my office along with other pets I've had because it just makes me, happy to think about what she gave me and me wanting to help other dogs like her that end up in shelters.
Well, and now we talked about the National Golden Retriever Day. How can people honor this day in ways that genuinely support animal welfare beyond just posting a cute? Not that there's anything wrong with posting a cute photo, but
Yeah. And I have learned through my podcast that there are many, many ways you can help. One simple way is to go on social or go on Google and look for golden retriever rescue organizations. There are rescues out there for every type of breed, and there are certain ones that specifically help golden retrievers. So support them, follow them on social, reshare their posts, donate money to them. But it doesn't even have to be specific. You can go to any shelter or animal rescue organization. You can volunteer your time. You can take old blankets and towels. They need those desperately. You can donate to them online. And you can foster. You can sign up to be a foster, or maybe it's time for you to go find a new pet of your own to adopt. Any of those things will help animals in your community.
oh, what feels missing or simplified in how we publicly celebrate pets today?
I don't know. That's a good question. I think sometimes that, we just love the cute photos and videos, but there's so much more to it. And so any kind of celebration and sharing, you may be making someone's day just by sharing that.
Okay, okay. Just as a way to conclude the episode, when people think back on the animals that shaped them, what do you hope they remember and maybe share after this day has passed?
I hope they remember the good. I think sometimes we get held up in the end and the sorrow of losing them, but we should really focus on the joy of all the days we had them, and that is still possible with your current pets or a new pet in your future, is to focus on the joy and what they bring us and how much we can help them in return.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, well, and in the course of the conversation, we did mention your podcast, Story of My Pet. Where can listeners tune in and also connect with you?
You can find my podcast, The Story of My Pet, anywhere you listen to podcasts. I also have a YouTube channel, Story of My Pet Podcast, or you can go to the website, which is simply thestoryofmypetpodcast.com.
I will put the links in the description so that listeners can just click and go directly to the site. Once again,
Great.
thank you so much, Julie. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's it for today's episode of the Observeday podcast. Thank you for spending your time with us as we explore today's observance. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share it with a friend who'd love to celebrate life's special days too. Don't forget to join the newsletter at observeday.com/join for more observance stories, tips, and updates. Until next time, keep finding meaning in every day.